Show 3 saw us concentrating our attention on a category that's slowly becoming very popular worldwide. It's dual-purpose bikes.
Okay, Noel, our first bike this week is
BMW's launch of BMW's
BMW's monstrous
R1150 GS.
Just look at the size of it. All in all, I have ridden the GS for about 250,000 kilometres.
This gigantic tourer come off-roader has earned itself a reputation to die for.
This bike is a true modern classic.
This flat boxed twin engine has a 6-speed gearbox and uses a shaft drive.
Power isn't the GS's strong point, with a modest 85 brake horse at the back wheel. But don't get the impression this bike is any slower.
The bike also has BMW's well-proven telelever suspension.
I think it's really good. It's a car-like wishbone suspension, 8 inches of travel on the front fork.
And I think it is the motorbike for long-haul journeys.
It's an absolutely brilliant bike. It's our best-selling model.
It is the combination of payload, a certain measure of comfort, safety, but also handling.
Not the cheapest thing to buy, but could simply be the only bike you'll ever need, and it will last.
It's unrivaled in its ability, and whilst its looks maybe love them all over them, there's no denying this bike is very good at what it does.
One, two. 1, 2. Welcome back to An Ordinary World. If you're new here, my name is Ferdia, and this, this magnificent machine is the iconic, the legendary BMW R1150 GS. I don't know if I could make that any more dramatic, but here she is. The year is 2024 as of recording, and this bike is from 2003. One of the last years that BMW produced the R1150 GS before they introduced the R1200 and then the R1250 and then of course the very new R1300 GS. So she's an old girl, but as you can see, still very much in her element here in the mountains of Georgia. So I am not a mechanic, I am not a moto journalist, I'm definitely not a pro rider. However, I am lucky enough to ride this bike all day, every day on this overlanding expedition that I'm currently on, heading east for an indefinite amount of time to an undecided location. So today I thought I would introduce you to not my bike, because I've actually been riding this bike since I was 6 years old. This is my dad's bike. It's on a temporary loan for this expedition. When I was about yay high, I was sitting here. Now of course I'm sitting here, and we do everything together. Road riding, off-road riding. Yeah, the old girl and I have been through quite a bit, so I feel confident enough talking about her. That said, let's load her up and get on the road. Good morning, babes. So, when she was first released, the R1150 GS, she was the 4th generation of GS. And when she was released, she was big. She was big, she was heavy. Lots of journalists were divided about her appearance, but time has put all of that to bed, because she's no longer exactly an oversized adventure bike, with adventure bikes being so big these days, looking at you or 1300. But nevertheless, you do feel it. She is a heavy, heavy bike. She weighs about 250 kilos wet plus luggage. But the boxer engine means that she has a really low center of gravity, which means that she handles, as a friend of mine once said, like a 125. Now he might have been exaggerating a little bit, but the point he was making is spot on. She does handle. She carries her weight very gracefully for such a heavy girl, which means off-roading and, you know, roads like this are an absolute breeze. And she now excuse me if I'm panting a lot, it's actually quite hot and I had to walk back to get the camera. Motor vlogging life. But on roads like this you really feel that telelever suspension coming into play. It's just so smooth, so smooth. Now I'm not much of an off-roader, but with such a smooth suspension you practically glide over ruts and bumps and stones like this. In 2004 BMW released the adventure model of the R1150 GS, which was the one that you know, skyrocketed the GS to fame with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman's The Long Way Round, and of course Claudio. Don't forget Claudio, the guy who did the work. I need a Claudio of my own on these trips. But yeah, that is the adventure model, which has an upgraded suspension and lower, more off-road focused gearing. That said, I mean, as a subscriber put in my comments once, the GS is a huge machine that can go off-road. That can go off-road. That is the crucial part. Woo! Stay away, doggy. You're not going to brap away on the trails like the T7s. You're not going to be given all the rider aids like the Africa Twins and the later GS models. But mosquito. But she can go off-road, and that is the crucial thing. If you're a good rider, you might be able to keep up with the T7s and Africa Twins. I'm not that good. I can just about get her over the easier trails, shall we say. But the whole point of the GS is that she can go off-road whilst still being a long-distance tourer. And on the road, my goodness, you cannot find a more comfortable bike. She will go hour after hour after hour in a straight line, in the curves, whatever you want. She will do it, and she will do it without complaining. She has six-speed gearbox, of course, with the sixth being the overdrive, the highway gear, which means that she'll hover at about 100, 110 kph, a hair above 3000 RPM. Fuel efficiency is not great. Now, to be fair, she's an old bike. That's sort of to be expected. She's got a 22-litre tank. I think it's 22 litres. Once upon a time she had ABS and those servo-assisted brakes, the linked brakes. Both of those things are gone on this model because, again, she's an old bike. We've got 68,810 miles on the clock, whatever that is in kph. This is an Irish bike, so everything is in joule miles and kilometers. Wow, just look at this view. Just look at this view. And this is where she's happiest. Trundling along in third gear over the dirt roads, and then when we get her on the highway, she'll just hum away happily. Right, let's get up into the mountains, I think. Hey! Frogs jumping into the river. I have a memory of about this time last year, nearly exactly a year ago. I made a video called Learning to Off-Road on Road Tires, or Learning to Off-Road my GS, or something like that. And I was living in Andalusia, and this actually, minus the snow, but you could sometimes see the Sierra Nevada in the distance and the rolling green hills. And there were tracks like this. And I remember it was exactly a rut like this that I came off on. I have never learned how to off-road properly. I just learned by doing. And it sparked a memory. Just sparked a memory. Look at us now, babes. 1 year on. Not too bad. It's all part of the plan. It's like a minefield of rocks that you've got to just tiptoe your way through. But GS, like I was saying earlier, is incredibly sure-footed. Carries that weight real low, so you feel kind of like you are tiptoeing. It's not a camera angle you should be seeing. Right at the end. I just got too tired. Okay, let's fuel. Ah, 100 meters from the end. But man, I just lost all power in my clutch hand from feathering for so long. And this is where you really feel the weight of the bike. Okay. Okay, back on the road, down out of the mountains. Oh, asphalt, oh my goodness. So, as we make our way to the coast, on these gorgeous roads, let us ask ourselves, who is this bike for? Well, 20 years ago when this bike was released, it was quite divisive. Journalists loved it or hated it. The critics said that it was too heavy, too ugly, too expensive. And I think this is what we're coming to with the whole legacy of the GS. Long Way Round came out, and suddenly this bike blew up. Adventure bikes, dual sports were becoming more mainstream in the early 2000s, and thanks to Long Way Round, BMW shot right to the top. A position I think it still probably holds despite competition from KTM, Triumph, Suzuki, Honda, Yamaha, those T7s. I see T7s everywhere, Overlanding. But the GS was really the one that sort of kicked it all off. And they weren't just selling a magnificent machine, they were selling a dream. Because it wasn't a cheap bike when it came out, much like the current BMWs. These are machines that are quite unaffordable to most people unless they're, you know, generally of a certain demographic. middle-aged dudes, and I used to make fun of GS riders when I was living in the city, because you'd see shiny GS's, 1250s scooting around the place, and that's all they were ever used for. Commuting and Sunday spins, which, you know, is absolutely fine. Most people don't have the time. Well, the road was short-lived. Most people don't have the time to do big overlanding trips like this. I'm aware that I'm in a very fortunate position to use this bike like this. But BMW was very much selling a dream. I'm going to just check if this is the road actually, because it should have been a main road. Let's just pull over. Hey, yeah, okay, this is the main road. Onwards. So it is a dream that BMW is selling, and they're selling it at a pretty high cost. And that's why it is generally, as I say, middle-aged guys riding them to their jobs in the city every day, because they're generally the only people who can afford these bikes. Now, who is the 1150 for today? Aha. Well, this is where you can get an adventure on a budget, and if they're well looked after, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't pick one up, because they'll just keep going. They will just keep going. Now these days we're seeing the popularity of small bikes, especially with the likes of Itchy Boots, for example, the largest motovlogging channel on the internet. She rides, what is it, a 300 rally? And that is the job for what she's doing. But then again, there is no reason why this bike can't do the same. You just need to be strong enough, you need to be fit enough to manage it. It is a heavy bike, so if you put it in the wrong place, you're going to have to be pulling it out of there. So you've got to be careful where you put your GS, for sure. But if you're a competent enough rider, especially if you're not riding solo, the GS is a fantastic machine. Why would you pick up a new 1250 or 1300 when you can pick up an 1150 for £2,000? I don't know. I actually don't know. I wouldn't. Look, let's be honest, there's very few places in the world where you have to traverse off-road. If you're doing off-roading, chances are you're doing it for fun. Most of the riding we're going to be doing is on the road, with the occasional, like when you're in Georgia and you've got to take the main road, which is actually just a gravel mountain pass. Well, like BMW knows, most of its riders are going to be riding on the road. So that's where I think the GS really shines. The GS can go off-road, and if you're a very competent off-roader, you can do amazing things with this machine. Most of us are not amazing off-roaders. We can just about get by. But the point is, when you're finished your off-road instant, you can take this on the motorway, you can take it through the curves, and there is no bike that will do that better. I'd like to see you sit 7 or 8 hours non-stop on a T7 at a highway speed. Not a chance. You'd be crippled the next day for sure. Right, let's get down. I thought we were out of the mountains, but we're not. Let's get down out of the mountains and sum up what we like and dislike about this bike. Here we are then, on the beautiful Black Sea coast, about 30 kilometers up from Batumi. You can just about see it over there in the distance, in the haze. And wow, the snow-capped mountains behind it. What a country. What a place. Whew, it's actually really hot. Anyway, back to the GS. What do I like about it? A lot. Comfort, first of all. It's probably the one thing that every biker I meet also overlanding on their T7s and whatnot, they're like, oh, they've got these pimped out machines, they look fantastic, but after 90 minutes or 2 hours on the motorway, their back is hurting, they're uncomfortable, they're shifting. With the GS, you can ride straight all day. And in the curves, it's very comfortable. Yeah, you can just sit there. It's such a nice riding position. The miles just fly past, you don't even notice them. And as I say, in the curves she does handle really well. It's such a big bike, but because it's got such wide handlebars and such a low center of gravity, yeah, she takes curves so easily and so comfortably again. Now, off-roading, she's probably not as, let's say, comfortable as a T7. She can off-road, and she does it quite well. Heavy for sure, but she carries that weight really low to the ground, and she's such a torquey engine that, okay, yeah, you won't be brapping through any jumps and such, at least I won't be, but she'll get it done. She will get it done. She will go through mud, snow, gravel roads are, I mean, nothing to her. That's where she's probably happiest. And I suppose it is that versatility that makes the GS the GS. It can do pretty much everything. Now, of course, every bike can do everything to a point, but the GS was designed to do everything. Hello, Dougie. And that's where it really shines. You can really see that, you know, the designers 40 years ago decided, okay, let's build a bike that, you know, can be enduro but can also handle really well on the street. Hence the dual sport aspect of these huge machines. Now, of course, today it is overshadowed by the 1200, the 1250, and of course the recent 13, that monstrosity, which are all amazing bikes. And they are amazing in ways that really highlights the age of the old 1150, because for as much as I do like about it, there are one or two things I dislike about it. The weight, okay, enough said. She drinks oil. She drinks oil. You have to just keep topping her up. I don't know where it goes. It just, yeah, she's a thirsty girl. Actually, do you know what? It is getting really hot here, and my brain is frying, so I'm going to move over into those trees before I start talking about the legacy issues of this bike. Give me one moment, please. Okay, legacy issues. People have had 20 years to figure out what tends to go wrong with these bikes. Now, luckily, none of these have affected me yet, but I've read about them. And really, I'm not too well equipped to talk about the mechanics of this bike because I'm not a mechanic. However, I do have a friend who knows his way around a GS much better than I do. Some of you may know him, Mal from the Mal vs Machine channel. Definitely check him out, because if you're here for the GS, he makes really good GS videos. In fact, let's give him a call.
Hello, Ferdia. How are you doing?
What are the chances that I catch you in a garage on a Sunday, ready with your camera set up?
I know. Well, yeah, it just so happens that I've got a dead Ducati, so yeah, I'm sitting on it right now, and yeah, it's like you knew I'd be here on a Sunday.
What are they good for?
Yeah, Italian engineering.
But come here to me. You know what I'm calling about, because we're YouTubers. We've obviously planned this out. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your GS? How long you've had it? Why you bought it?
Right. So my GS is. I'll just say that it's a pretty much. I think it's a 1999, early 2000 model, and I bought it late November 2022. Actually, yeah. So I've had it over a year. And I bought it just with the intention of sort of dipping my toe into the adventure market, because I didn't really want to go spending on something really expensive and not enjoy the whole concept. So I remember two particular people going around the world, the long way around from London to New York. And yeah, and that bike kind of stood out for me. So I pretty much jumped on the internet, had a look, found the cheapest one I could find. Done the same, that was on Auto Trader and on eBay, and yeah, the next day I rang the guys up, put a deposit on it, and then on the Saturday morning I drove up to buy it and brought it back home with me. And it's been in the garage for a lot of the time, but I've had some great times on it already, and I absolutely love the bike. It's obviously to the right hand side of me here, and I'd say it's probably the most rewarding bike I've ever bought, because obviously I've worked my way through it just to make sure it's all good, and now I'm comfortable to ride it wherever I want to go, really. So for you to be doing I'd like to do pretty much what you were doing on yours, you know what I mean? What you were doing is fantastic, and I think because of what I've done to my bike, I kind of have more of an intricate understanding of it now, and I think if I was to have any issues, then I'd know where to look. So that's pretty much the basics of it.
Yeah, it's a simple machine to work on in terms of if you've never played with motorcycles before.
Okay.
I've dabbled a little bit.
With the dirt bike to the left of me, just the bare basics, you know, upgrades I think is the best way to put it, for all minor modifications and cleaning. But with the BMW, one of the things that sort of made me go for this over the likes of the KTM 990 or the 950 is because of the boxer engine.
The cylinder heads poking out of the right hand side and left hand side.
Obviously, they're really practical because if you want to change a spark plug or if you want to just even adjust the valves, everything is just a case of pulling it apart, making the little tweaks there. You don't need any specialist equipment for it. You don't need to buy any shims or anything. You can just put your little feeler gauges in there, do the tightening up and then put it all back together. You don't even need a replacement gasket for the rocker cover because it's a rubber one. So these things are very, very sort of easy to deal with out on the road unless you need a clutch change.
Because then that is a big job where you kind of pull in the back end from the front end and you kind of need to lift it up off the floor.
So you did a clutch change
Really
on
good
yours?
to do that. I didn't do a clutch change, no.
It was something I was tempted to do, but clutches are quite expensive and I thought that I kind of needed to slow down on how much money I was spending on the bike because I was just thinking, right, if I'm going in there, I might as well do this. So like I changed all the push rods while I was doing the valve clearance because I heard a little ticking. And then just out of curiosity, I went in to check the camshaft. I can't remember what they're called, but they pretty much put camshaft tensioner, there we go. And thankfully that had an upgraded hydraulic one. So yeah, these things are old now, obviously, but the parts are readily available, provided in the right place. And obviously we've got some good places in the UK to get them just delivered within the next few days. And it all works out really well if you are kind of planning on maintenance them, you know. But again, I've got people, thankfully, which I think is quite nice, people are commenting on the video saying they're comfortable to go and have a play.
Because they've seen that it's really easy and user-friendly.
Yep.
They can just jump in there, do what they need to do, and then put the rocker covers back on.
Or change a spark plug, you know, it's super easy. And again, one of the reasons why I went for the BMW was there was an episode of The Long Way Round where
they flooded the bikes.
That's right, I remember that.
Yeah, so they just...
You remember them, they took the spark plugs off, just tried starting the bike as if just to get the cylinders moving, which pushed all the water out. And then they put the spark plugs back in, carried on trying to start the bike off the button, and they fired up. So again, if you're doing that with a, you know, like a V-twin or L-twin, whatever they want to be called, with a KTM 990, you're taking the tank off, you're taking everything off to get to those cylinder heads to then be able to get to the spark plug. So yeah, that's why these things, I think, they're just so good, you know. And like the Porsche 911, the GS has just become more refined over the years.
They've not tried changing them massively, they've just tried to better the model that they've got. So
I think that's why I've jumped up the 1150. And yeah, I don't see the need to rush away from this bike because it serves the purpose. And as you've probably seen, mate, I'm quite comfortable taking this thing off-road. And they're just an absolute beast. Like I think Adam Riemann, that big adventure rider, calls them the Rhino because of what they do.
That's right. Yeah, they just keep
I
going.
absolutely love the bike, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
do, you know.
But would you see
And can
yourself?
work on it yourself.
Would you see yourself upgrading it to a 1250 or, God forbid, a 13?
I could see me doing it, but I wouldn't get rid of this bike. I think what I would like to do is I'd like to build a garage of each one of them.
Just because you know,
I know the quirks now of the 1150. I know about the drive shaft and everything else. I know about the electrics, you know, which is a common fault because I mean it's 20-year-old wiring. So in certain parts, depending on who provided that part, the wiring goes brittle, so that you have to re-insulate it to stop having starting issues, which is something I recently had with the bike. So since I've fixed that issue, it's all good, you know, the bike is fine. So to then go to the next bike is obviously you're learning about the next sort of, the next problem series that those bikes had. So I would like to go backwards and get an 1100.
just to try those.
Oh yeah.
See what the similarities are.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know they were the sort of, they look like, I can't think, the Black Death, big nose kind of masked doctor, you know. So I'd like to go for one of those, but for now I'm not in a rush to get another GS, I think is the best way to say it. This thing ticks all the boxes for me. I'm going to Scotland in 2 weeks on it to give it a nice long run.
Yeah, very nice. I have not had any issues with mine. None at all, none at all. The linked brakes are long gone on mine, as is the ABS.
Yeah,
but since I've come to possess the bike, shall we say, I have not had a single issue, and I've put her through quite a lot actually. But it's like
absolutely,
I'm not a mechanic. But I'm confident, because it's such a rudimentary machine, that if I do encounter a problem, I can just YouTube it and just follow it along, because it's simple.
Yeah, 100%. Right?
Yeah. It's real peace of mind for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the way the world is now with online manuals, you can pretty much have a library in your pocket on your phone. So if it is something that is struggling, you just open the manual and then suddenly you're in the bike. But I think, as far as modifications to this bike goes, to make things easier in the future, for anybody that is thinking about one of these bikes, one of the things I fitted, and I fitted it quite late, is the quick release connectors for the fuel lines.
Because, have you got those, have you?
No, but I remember seeing that you actually upgraded your injectors. You put the one from the 1250 in, right?
Yeah, so the 1200 injectors I put
the 1200,
okay. Yeah, but that made the bike so much smoother, and it's more responsive as well.
The first ride up, I made a comment that the bike was quite slow and I was hesitant to overtake cars, which I really was. But when you're removing the tank off the bike to be able to get to the certain areas of the bike, you're taking the tank off and on quite a lot. So if you haven't got the quick release connectors on the fuel lines, it's a nightmare, mate. So I think if anybody was to go and get one of these bikes and then are going to make a modification straight away, I think if you don't have the quick release fuel lines, definitely get them, because I wish I had bought those as the first upgrade for the bike, because it would have made my life so much easier.
Fuel lines built on this garage.
It gets everywhere. Yeah, I know. I had the same with the the 850, the BMW 850C that I ride sometimes. They don't have the quick release, and I feel your pain. It's a lot of rags all over the floor. Smell of petrol everywhere. Oh my god, the van's just pulled up right behind me. Okay, come here to me. I'm going to spin on. It's getting busy around here.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Thanks very much, and be safe, alright?
Listen, thanks for taking the call.
No problem, mate.
All
Take care.
Chat you. Bye. Oh shit, no. Down we go. Well, there she is, BMW's R1150 GS. I'm worried that this has become more of a love letter than an actual review, but we spend a lot of time together, this bike and I. Old, yes. Clunky, yes. Simple, yes. But none of those are necessarily bad things. When you look at this machine from the late 90s, early 2000s, and you compare it to the new 1300, it's like comparing a tractor to a spaceship. And to be honest, that is sort of what she feels like sometimes, a two-wheel tractor. The engineering sophistication that we see in modern bikes like the new 1300 was only possible after 20 years of development, and this is really where it started. Yes, there were 3 GS models before the 1150, but this is the one that propelled BMW and the GS model to the top. When you compare it to new bikes like the new 1300, which is so sophisticated, so elaborate, well, there's probably something to be said for the simplicity of the 1150, and I suppose of older bikes in general. These days, as I've said, we are seeing competition coming in from smaller displacement bikes for overlanding, for off-roading and touring, but surely the big adventure bike still has a place in this market, but only if it's exactly that, an adventure bike. Not something that is so unaffordable price-wise to so many people. Not something that, if something goes wrong with it, you have to take it to a BMW specialist so that they can plug their computers and run software codes through it. No, if you want an adventure bike, you want something that you can afford, to throw around and to drop, and something that can be fixed when things inevitably go wrong. All of which I would argue the 1150 does. Old, yes, but with age comes old school technology, old school fixability, if that's even a word. Clunky, absolutely, but with clunkiness comes ruggedness, it comes hardness, it comes durability. And reliability, well, it's like Mal and I were talking about. You can take this bike apart with a bunch of spanners and wrenches. Don't get me wrong, the new GS's, the 1250, the 1300, even the 1200, which, you know, you see a big step up in development between the 1150 and the 1200. They're fantastic bikes, they really are. But they're fantastic bikes for the way that most riders are going to use them most of the time, which is maybe like European or North American touring, commuting and Sunday spins. In that, they excel. Would I take one of them up here into the mountains of Georgia? Yes, of course. But I'd be stressed. I'd be stressed about dropping such an expensive, such a gorgeous bike. I'd be stressed that if something were to happen, well, I certainly wouldn't be able to fix it. Whoa, gunshot. I certainly wouldn't be able to fix it, but I'd also be worried that the guy down in the village, when I finally trundle down the mountain, that he also wouldn't be able to fix it. 2 shots is never a good sign. Yeah, the 1250 and the 1300 also, simply I can't afford them, and a lot of other people can't afford them too. We would rather, I'm sure, buy an 1150 and use the 6 to 9 grand that it would cost us to buy a 1250 or 1300 to actually do the travelling on the 1150. And I think that's really where her place is in today's market. It's for people like me, people who want to go out adventuring, overlanding. They want something that is simple, reliable, that they're not stressed about breaking. And of course there are many other bikes that do that too. So why would you pick an 1150 over, you know, a Transalp or even an older T7? Well, that always comes down to personal choice at the end of the day. But the 1150 is a legend. It is iconic. And the fact that we are still riding these as they were designed to be ridden more than 20 years later, it really speaks to the engineering and the craftsmanship that went into these bikes back into the late 90s and early 2000s. I have a very distinct memory of being on the road in Andalusia on the way to Huelva and pulling up at a red light, and a guy rolls up behind me, rolls up beside me on a 1250, and he nods deferentially, appreciatively, as many bikers do. And he said to me 3 words. He said to me, "Es una joya." She's a jewel. And I think he really hit the nail on the head there. BMW, with the GS line, rose to dominance in the adventure bike market. They are the crowning model, the crowning manufacturer. And I think as the bike that started it all, the 1150 is, rightly so, the jewel in that crown. And for this bike at least, my 1150, my dad's 1150, well, she's right where she belongs. She's right on top.